that. We'll miss him, but he's in our hearts. Thank you.
Thank you, Ernest. Now, join us in welcoming Dr. David J. Johns to the stage.
I get money, I'm a star. I get money, I'm a star. お金稼ぐ、俺らはスター。お金稼ぐ、私はスター。
I'm not gonna show y'all my mega knees, but no, they still work. I appreciate that. I was asking my sister over here who got the memo, because we coordinated in cardigans, what song are they gonna play for me? She couldn't find it, so I was a little worried. So whoever selected that, thank you. The cap in me appreciates that. I am David J. Johns. I have the pleasure of quarterbacking the team at NBJC, the National Black Justice Collective. For those who don't know, we are now a 21-year-old organization founded to ensure that all Black people have the opportunity not just to survive, but to thrive. Including in spite of social constructs that we didn't consent to and that we have to live through. I got 3 quick things that I want to share before I cede the stage to some brilliant members of NBJC's Good Trouble Network. The first is to say thank you. I'm thankful to the true patriots, to the elected and appointed leaders who understand the importance of service no matter the cost, to the board members and the educators who understand the importance of teaching all the babies who didn't ask to be born, and who, again, are not consenting to the politics that are intimately affecting their lives in ways that they are going to grow into, hopefully. Thank you to those of us who respect the teachings of Pulitzer Prize-winning prophet K. Kendrick Lamar, and who, when necessary, tell those dwelling in a delusion of white mediocrity, ignorance, and hate to squabble up. Thank you sincerely for your service. My request to you, my beseechment, is to guard your joy. Commit to the people and practices that feed all the important parts that make you whole, happy, and healthy. Let's remember to breathe. As Anise was telling that story, thank you for that. I was breathing because I was like, oh, just show me where he is so I can punch him in his throat. The Lord is still working on me. I'll be your anger translator. Love on yourself and your people. Acknowledging, hopefully y'all have a Kendrick moment too. And whatever you do, as Anise offered, please don't go alone. Proceed knowing that we will win. When I found myself at a similar moment like this, serving still my president, Barack Hussein Obama, his fabulous wife, Michelle Yvonne Robinson Obama, Sasha Malia, Sonny Bo, Grandma Robinson, rest in heaven too. I was leading an initiative that he created focused on educational excellence for African Americans. And when I knew that someone who did not earn it was going to occupy the Oval Office, and I had the chance to talk to his son, Martin Luther King Jr. III, I asked him how he made peace with sacrificing his father in moments where it seemed like it was in vain. And what he gave me then is something that I want to give to all of you. It's a sermon that his father preached on November 5th, 1967 at Ebenezer Baptist Church in Atlanta, Georgia. It's titled, But If Not. I'm not going to read the whole thing. I'm going to ask you to listen to it, let him read it to you. In spite of the fact that they keep circulating only black and white pictures to suggest that the 60s was a long, long time ago, it wasn't. Leverage the technology to engage in a conversation with him directly. But a couple of highlights. So in this sermon, what he's talking about is that the Israelites found themselves in bondage in Babylon, and they were dealing with this bad person named Nebuchadnezzar. In my mind, Nebuchadnezzar is the same kind of nigga like the failed history teacher turned governor of Florida, Ronald Dion DeSantis. That's what his mama call him, that's what I'm gonna call him. So what, Dr. King didn't say that, I wanna be clear. Don't y'all misattribute this to Dr. King, that was me. So, what Dr. King said in the text is that Nebuchadnezzar was a mighty king, and when he ruled, and when he issued an order, he meant business. He made a golden statue image of himself, and his order was that everybody under the reign of the kingship had to bow before this golden image. Sound like somebody we know? Golden Nikes and shit. So there were three young brothers in the community, Meshach, Shadrach, and Abednego. The black folks who go to church know where I'm going with this too. These 3 young men answered, and they said to him, "No, That's not really what they said. What they really said was, "O Nebuchadnezzar, we are not careful to answer thee in this manner. If it be so, our God, whom we serve, is able to deliver us from the burning fiery furnace, and he will deliver us out of thine hand, O king. But if not, be it known unto thee, O king, that we will not serve thy God, nor worship the golden image which thou hast set up." So what King says is, first, I want you to notice here that these young men practice civil disobedience. Civil disobedience is a refusal to abide by an order of the government or of the state or even of the court that your conscience tells you is unjust. Civil disobedience is based on a commitment to conscience, and there comes a time when a moral person can't obey a law which their conscience tells them is unjust. Language changes to make it most inclusive. Later in the passage, he says, if we forget everything that I've said, I hope you won't forget this. It came to a point of saying, our God is able to deliver us from this burning, fiery furnace, but if he does not deliver us, we are still not going to bow. It's this but if not piece that I want us to hold on to. We want to get away from what Dr. King talks about as an if faith. We got to have a though faith. The if faith says if all goes well, if life is hopeful, prosperous, and happy, if I don't have to go to jail, if I don't have to organize a protest like Hope Giselle just did yesterday and the threat of going to jail, if I don't have to face the agonies and burdens of life or of blackness or of queerness, if I'm not ever called bad names because of taking a stand that I feel I must take, if none of these things happen, then I will have faith in God. He says we got to have through faith that says, though things will go wrong, though evil is temporarily triumphant, Donald John Trump, though sickness comes and the cross might loom, nevertheless, I'm going to believe anyway. I'm going to have faith anyway. A lot of people are bargaining. That's why we're in this moment where a lot of people are going to fuck around and find out. But the thing that I want us to be most mindful of is if we listen to things like the teachings of Brother Langston, we got to worry about the least of us and those who did not consent to finding out or who already knew what we're going to. So he says, I'm coming to my conclusion now, as am I. Somewhere along the way, you should discover something that is so dear, so precious to you, that is so eternally worthful that you will never give it up. You ought to discover some principle. You ought to have some great faith that grips you so much that you will never give it up. Somehow you got to go on and say, I know that the God that I worship, the faith that I have, the friendships that I have made will deliver me. And I am not going to anyhow give it up anyway. He says, if you are doing right to avoid pain, to achieve happiness, and to have pleasure, then you aren't doing right at all. Ultimately, you must do right because it is the right thing to do. He concludes with this for me, and I say this to you this morning, that if you have never found something so dear and so precious that you are willing to die for it, then you aren't fit to live.
That part.
You may be 38 years old, as I happen to be, and one great day, some opportunity stands before you and calls you to stand up for some great principle, some great issue, some great cause, and you refuse to do it because you are afraid. You refuse to do it because you want to live longer. You are afraid that you will lose your job. You are afraid that you will be criticized or that you will lose popularity. Are you afraid that somebody will stab you or shoot you or bomb your house, and so you refuse to take the stand? Well, you may go on to live until you are 90, but you are just as dead at 38 as you would be at 90. And the cessation of breathing in your life is but the belated announcement of an earlier death of the spirit. You died when you refused to stand up for right. You died when you refused to stand up for truth. And you died when you refused to stand up for justice. What the boys know is something that I hope all of us know, and those who go on to study this scripture know, which is that when you go with God or the kind of ancestors that I know, you don't ever go alone. And the beauty of organizations like Victory, thank you, Anissa, to your team, of NBJC, thank you to my team, is that we know when white supremacists, actually let me remix that to be more accurate, when people who are bathing in white mediocrity came for us, they never came alone. When they lynch, they come in numbers. So let's clean onto each other. Let's love each other harder. Those of us who have more privilege, y'all better find ways to expend it because we need you now in the spirit of Dr. King because we will win. Somebody who has one, somebody who helps me to remember and appreciate this is a member of our Good Trouble Network. Before I do that, can all of the members of GTN stand up and be acknowledged? Thank you for y'all service. Nicole, stand up. Yep. Andrea's over here. Some are on the panel. Yep. For the black people in the room who don't know what the secret society is that I'm talking about, holler at your boy. We got your membership packet on the way. Brother Simmons, come take it away. Thank y'all.
No matter we together, it's not something that you wanna do, it's just something you going through. Tough like the sky from the pale, won't let it bruise. Like the blue collar, red dirt attitude. Like a 38 made out of brass. Tough like stuff in my grandpa's glass. Life's gonna do what it does. Show us the good news of the past.
Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Illinois State Senator Mike Simmons, and I represent the 7th District, which covers the far north side of Chicago. And because I'm a millennial, I want to do a quick selfie video because that's what we do. So on the count of 3, I want everybody to give an applause for all of those in the audience who are thinking about running for office. Let's give all of them a round of applause on the count of 3. 1, 2, 3. Let me hear you. Let me hear you. This is your moment. We need you. We need you. And we love you. So I'm one of those that actually decided to run for office, and 3 years ago became the very first openly LGBTQIA+ person elected to the upper chamber to the Senate of the state of Illinois. And I'm here today to just offer some quick and poignant reflections on the moment that we're in, certainly as a black state senator, a black leader, but as an intersectional person, as a person who is proudly and resplendently gay, as a person who is creative and eccentric, as a person who is the son of an African-American woman descended from people who have been survivors in this country for 400+ years and have figured out the way, and a descendant of a father who came over as a refugee from Ethiopia just a year before I was born. That is the representation that I show up with every day in the Illinois Senate. And so let me tell you something. The first observation I'll make on this moment is there's this narrative that's been shaping up that since a certain man got reelected to assume the White House in a couple of weeks here, that we should shave off certain members of our community, that we should stop emphasizing social issues that, by the way, have been hoisted upon us. Our identities have been politicized. We didn't come into this world to show up on people's referendums and ballot boxes. We're just trying to live and we're just trying to be. That's what the American dream is supposed to be all about. So I reject that narrative, and I hope that you do too, that we're going to run for office and we're not going to talk about the issues that LGBTQ youth are experiencing, where they literally can't walk into a library and pick up a book by Audre Lorde or another queer author, the same way that some of us here who are millennials did just 15 and 20 years ago. All we want for young people is literally what we just had 10 and 20 years ago. That is not radical, and that is not out of the realm of American politics. So don't tell them that, give us this about rejecting these narratives, because they never made sense 20 years ago, and they damn sure don't make sense today. You know, these narratives that say that we ought to home in and use milder, more milquetoast language. You know, our young people are watching us, and our elders are watching us too. And I think they both look at us and say, no, the elders have lived too long under the boot of oppression to watch us hide their identities and hide the issues that LGBTQIA people are dealing with all across this country, where now the United States is less safe for our community than Canada. I never thought I would live to see that. And so we got to give that back, because 20 years ago, respectability politics didn't make sense. It was never innovative, it was never clever, and it isn't effective. So let me tell you a little bit about what I've done as a state senator in the last 3.5 years. I've been talking about the issues that all the pundits are saying that we should start talking about as progressives and as people that are either queer or queer allied. Talking about issues like child tax credits, which again is not radical politics. We're talking about tax cuts for low-income people, many of which are going to be LGBTQIA parents. Because a lot of us are parents. A lot of us are moms and dads and aunts and uncles and grandmothers and gay uncles and adoptive kin. And so that's what we got to talk about. Is I passed the child tax credit in Illinois. It was a fight. It took 3 years to get it done. But it wasn't a gay issue. It wasn't a straight issue. It wasn't a black or a white issue. Economics affects all of us. And we got that done. We also were able to pass, one of the very first bills I passed in the Illinois Senate was a bill to outlaw hair discrimination against black and queer youth. Get out of our hair. Get your hands off of our bodies. It's so basic. And then we went even further. Last year, we passed that same law for kids who are in foster care so that they can have a hair protection plan. The systems can protect them that have failed those kids for decades and decades and decades. Come on, we have better things to do as a society than to withhold people's identities from them. And so we can fight for these economic issues. We can fight for issues that affect our health care. We just passed a program in Illinois. I was the lead sponsor in the Senate that is canceling medical debt relief for, in the month of October alone, 52,000 people. 52,000 people who are straight and queer and grandmother gay and grandfather queer and grandson lesbian across the spectrum. Everybody has to get health care. Everybody has medical bills. Everybody has experienced that. And so those are the kind of issues that I, as a queer leader, am fighting on. This is not a straight cisgender white guy's agenda. This is like literally me, the gay state senator of Illinois with the dreadlocks' agenda. And we also are passing legislation to redo the state statutes in Illinois. I led another bill last session that will require that all state agencies have to use gender pronouns that are respective of the people whose bodies and lives are affected by those departments. Stop erasing us, the most basic things. And so that's my reflection for the moment right now is we, first of all, keep doing what we've been doing because we already have figured this out. Right, and for those of you here that are LGBTQ and are intersectional, particularly for black folks in the audience and for my African American side, we've been here for 400 years. We've figured out how to survive, and I've been telling so many of my friends who are nervous about Trump being reelected is that we've seen America at its worst before. Okay. In fact, we've seen America at its worst in our own lifetimes. Okay, 20 years ago, remembering people talk about gay marriage and whispering about gay marriage. And you know, the consultant said that we shouldn't really use that phrase, and we ought to adopt the language of the church. And that didn't work 20 years ago. It took the Supreme Court in 2015 to show us another way. And so what I want us to do is continue to do that, continue to fight that good fight. And the last thing I'll say as a point of reflection is we got to flip the script. We must flip the script. Somebody in a panel yesterday in this conference stood up in frustration and said that, you know, I'm listening to a lot of the things I'm hearing in here, and I feel like we're just trying to replicate the good old boys system. We're trying to, you know, play the rules by the games that the good old boys have already set for us. You know, wear a particular type of tie, pronounce your words a particular type of way. All these things are just, again, not interesting, not inspiring, and damn sure not effective. And I want to win. I don't know about you. How many of you want to win? We want to win. We were born to win. Generations before us fought so that we could win this moment. And so when we look at the political landscape in this country, ask yourself, what is the script that you can write? What is the power that you have? What is the thing that you're thinking and don't want to say in these sessions? What is the thing that you write down in your journal at night? What is the ancestral wisdom that we can tap into, the things that your grandparents maybe told you that made a whole lot of sense? Or even for indigenous people in this country who have just centuries of wisdom that they could offer us for this precise moment for how to amass power and how to use our spirituality and to use our value system to connect with voters and connect with communities. Because what people want right now is something real. The people that have voted for politics of hate in this country and have reelected Donald Trump are just as frustrated as so many of us are, maybe for different reasons. So they're frustrated, they're on social media, and they're living their original truths, as hateful as they are. And I think that's an opportunity for us to dig deeper into the things that animate us and the things that feel more real for us and start talking about those things and start building movements that will outlast our generation. And if we do that, then I think that we've really made the most of a moment in American history that, again, is not unprecedented, but is one that I don't want to live in for the rest of my life. I don't want the children that my partner and I will have to live in that world, and I know that you don't either. So with that, we're going to have a whole panel that will be reflecting on this question, particularly as black and same-gender loving folks, as part of the Good Trouble Network. And I want to bring on the stage a good friend of mine, Shay Clausen-Franken from California, political director of Equality California. And I'm going to read Shay's bio, so bear with me. I'll try to do this quickly. But she's somebody you need to know. So Shay Franco-Clausen is the political director for Equality California and is based in the Bay Area. an award-winning public advocate, speaker, and political strategist, and former elected official with lots to teach us. Her fingerprints can be seen on 17 pieces of transformative legislation amongst countless successful campaigns. Notable among these accomplishments is her pivotal role extending the statute of limitations for advocating for felony domestic violence survivors, advocating for the rights of foster youth, and preserving endangered open species, championing the restoration of voting rights for individuals on parole, and much more. Shay has spent the last 14 years serving on countless local, county, and state boards, political action committees, and commissions centered on criminal justice, LGBTQ and reproductive rights, and gender-based violence and environmental productions. Shay will lead a panel with Councilmember Crystal Hudson from the New York City Council, Councilmember Andrea Jenkins from the Minneapolis City Council, Senator Chevron Jones from the Florida State Senate, Representative Fabian Nelson from the Mississippi House of Representatives, and finally, but damn sure not least, Courtney Snowden, founder and president of the Blueprint Strategy Group. Take it away.
I like lipstick on my neck. Leave it sticky, icky in a place I won't forget. I like lipstick on my neck. Baby, I'm obsessed. Give me undressed. I wanna feel your lips on mine. I just wanna feel a little time. We don't have a long time.
All right. We gotta wait for Mother Jenkins to get up here.
Whisper in my ear, only me you can hear. I seen it from the back and I'm excited. Tell me what you do when we walk up in the room. Yeah, tell you something nasty.
I love that the listen. Yes.
And you know it's coming next. We can make a movie, I can write it. Let's just make a move, baby. 'Cause for your love, I'll take my time.
Take your time.
Just wanna feel
That's a DJ in me. Well, good afternoon. Oh, we can do this one more time better. You got black people up here. Good afternoon. Thank you so much. Well, my name is Shay Franco-Clausen, and I appreciate the promotion of adding Clausen before the Franco, but it is the Franco before the Clausen. I know my wife enjoyed that moment. I'm actually so honored to be on this stage with these amazing leaders from our community, because today's goal is to really facilitate a conversation to provide insight to the challenges, but also the advantage of black leadership. But really the purpose of this conversation is to give the panelists an opportunity to share a way that you all can contribute to help improve and amplify and expand black representation. Before I engage the council, I want to take the panel, take this moment of opportunity is to say that every time I come to this conference now, which I love, I usually make sure to take three things with me. One, I make it a point to learn something new. Two, I take what I learned back to my own community. And three, I add some of you to my Rolodex so we can have shared power. All right. And I hope that each of you do the same thing. I'm gonna go ahead and start with a small introduction to the panelists. They really can speak for themselves. We all know their leadership across the United States, but let me give a little bit of insight. And I'll start with Mother Queen, the Minneapolis City Councilwoman, Andrea Jenkins. Who we all supported when she made history as the first African-American trans woman to be elected in the United States. She was elected, and we all got to watch as president of the Minneapolis City Council, is also a performer, a poet, a writer, but a trans activist that we all have benefited from. She notably led, and we all really watched during this time because we were all forced to be home, her leadership on accountability for the murder of George Floyd, sparking a racial equity uprising that took place across the world, especially that we had your back in California. So thank you always for your continued leadership. Then we have beside me right here, Representative Fabian Nelson. Yes. Who was elected to the Mississippi House of Representatives, 66, District 66, including parts of South Jackson, Byram, Terry, and Utica. Is that how you say it?
Utica.
Utica. Look at, I'm messing it all up. Okay. I knew I should have skipped that part. As a legislator, he sits on the Housing Committee, Technology Committee, Military Affairs, and Judiciary B. And during your first session, you authored and co-authored over 50 bills. Holy smokes. Notably, one of the bills paved the way for the largest capital investment in Mississippi's history. $10 billion for the Amazon data center. And we know that provides jobs, regardless of how you feel about Amazon. It provides jobs and for consumers and money in your communities. But you also authored HB 1137 that extends availability for Narcan to combat the fentanyl crisis that we're all experiencing, which passed chambers unanimously. So thank you for your leadership. And then we have our New York City Council member, Crystal Hudson, who, New York City District 35, right? And is a third-generation Brooklynite, and she was the first elected in 2021 and made history as the first gay black woman ever elected in New York City. Right. Listen. Crystal is a public servant committed to making government more accessible for more people. A first-term council member, she passed more bills than any other first-term member in Brooklyn and was second among all new members. Okay. She authored the Black Agenda for New York City and co-authored the Pride Policy Plan, a first-of-its-kind policy agenda to support LGBTQIA+ New Yorkers. Crystal is chair of the Committee on Aging and also serves as co-chair of the Council's Black, Latino, Asian Caucus. Thank you so much for your leadership. And then who doesn't know Ms. Courtney Snowden, who is the founder and president of the Blueprint Strategy Group, a boutique government and public care shop in Washington, D.C., right here. All right. And as a member of the board of directors for the Nash Black Justice Coalition that I'm actively a part of. That's right. She served on her hometown as deputy mayor for the Greater Economic Opportunity in Washington, D.C. Wow. Appointed by Mayor Muriel Bowser in April of 2015. A sixth-generation Washingtonian, Courtney was charged with, I don't know, y'all, listen. I'll tell you, I'm a Californian. Was charged with rebuilding and revitalizing the district's overlooked and underserved communities, focusing on workforce development, economic development, and small businesses. Courtney is also a longtime trainer who trained me before I ran back in 2016 with the LGBT Victory Fund. So thank you so much. And you've all waited for this conversation. It took a little bit of time to get here, but let's just get right into the questions. Let's just get to it. There are publicly announced threats against our community that you've heard through all the panelists and what we are actually experiencing today. We all are in search for hope and ways to maintain the will and fortitude to continue this work. What actions have you all taken to really guard your joy, protect your peace, your head, your heart, and your body? And I'll start with you, Fabian.
All right. So basically, you have to engage in self-care. So a lot of times as elected officials, we get so busy in our community and with our people that we forget about ourselves. Mm-hmm. So I found a way to spend more time with my family, do things that I enjoy doing, kind of back off of the community service piece just a little bit, because if you're not taking care of yourself, you cannot serve your people. Right. Get involved with organizations. Therapy, mental health is real. I tell all elected officials, you need to get some mental health to make sure that you're staying healthy and in the right headspace, because it's very polarizing right now, the things that we're dealing with. Even after this last election, a lot of people kind of crawled up in the closet, myself included, and saying, what is it that we do to go forward? One thing that we cannot do is accept it. That's right. One thing that we have to do is we have to look at midterm elections that are coming up.
That's right.
And go in there and make some changes. So we cannot accept it, but we got to continue to fight. But self-care is the number one thing that we need to focus upon.
Thank you. Courtney?
Oh, yeah. I mean, that self-care is important. Now,
yes.
But let me say this. So the first week after the election, I was angry, I was frustrated, I was crying, I was stressed. It was almost like I hadn't had my morning coffee all day long. Right? My kids were like, have you had your coffee yet? Did you work out? I did, and still I feel like this, guys. But here's the thing I think we all have to do to guard our joy.
Yes.
Tell the truth. Mm-hmm. Okay, so when we are talking about these election results, when we are talking about what happened, we have to stop sugarcoating what happened. the last time Trump won, we said things like, you weren't racist if you voted for Trump, right? But racism didn't bother you. No, right? If you vote for a white supremacist, you are probably supportive of white supremacist policies. You are probably a white supremacist. Knowing that makes it a lot easier to develop a plan to fight. That's how I guard my joy, right? I'm a black woman. I'm part of that 92%, right? So we did our job.
That's right here.
And so, but what that means is we have been making plans for fights that we weren't actually in. That's what happens when we lie to ourselves. So the way that I care for myself, the way I care for my community, and the way I protect my children is by telling the truth so that we can make effective plans. After I have my massage and see my therapist twice a week and go shopping,
Right. I think
and get my nails done, yes.
Similarly to what's already been said, for me it's also family. I have a 1.5-year-old that gives me much joy and hope, and so spending more time with her and my wife and making sure that I'm taking care of myself, but then also we are taking care of our nuclear family, and then also surrounding myself with community, hosting events. People also have a lot of questions about how exactly we will move forward, and so making sure that we're gathering like-minded people and telling the truth and making sure that we actually have a plan of action to move forward. But I find that surrounding myself in community has been helpful at this time.
I love that.
Yeah, I mean, I can't say much more different from what everybody else has shared. The day after the election, I took some time out and went to see an art exhibition. It was Kara Walker, and I'm not sure if people know her work, but it really reflected on. She did this series of silhouettes over a civil rights, a Civil War pictorial book. And, it helped remind me that this struggle has been going on for a very, very, very long time, and that we can overcome it. And the joy is in making beauty out of something that is ugly and nasty and hateful. And I think that's the power of her work, and that is what we have to try to do, is try to make some beauty out of these really ugly scenarios that we find ourselves in.
No, I hear you. And I went to bed Tuesday. I actually took a leave of absence, and I was tapped to work on for California, the Harris campaign. And during that night when we flew out to LA to be with our team, I think I got so many calls, and I just want to say Cassandra, Heidi, Kentora, Jared, people who made sure that I was okay. And I literally cried for a moment with my wife. And then in the morning, I got up and made a map of where we lost. And I went into strategy. I also have a therapist that I meet with too. Let's keep it 100. But I think that I had to find solace in the people that I surround myself with and respecting their time of grievance. But I also am a strategist, and we've been here before. I had to think about, okay, so we lost, what are we going to do to repair? Because we are all here. We serve people. We are here to protect and try to be in spaces to protect people and advocate for people who can't advocate for themselves. So that's the way I did it. As I cried, I got up, I went to the next thing. So yes, thank you all. For the elected officials, this question is specifically about what are some of the policies and practices you are prioritizing, as we lead into this next incoming administration and the impacts? What are some of the things that you are already trying to provide policy-wise or things for your community as we prepare for them taking office in January? I'll start with you, Brandon.
I'll start. So in Minneapolis, we are a sanctuary city for immigrants.
Yeah.
We are a sanctuary city for trans and gender nonconforming people. So, leaning into that and helping to build the infrastructure that supports that commitment to ensuring that immigrant rights are upheld in our community, that people have access to safe and affordable trans-specific health care, if that's something that they're interested in, making sure that reproductive rights are protected in our community. We did an ordinance trying to keep protesters away from Planned Parenthood a certain distance. And that is being challenged right now in courts. But, we have to lean into really trying to build those supports and infrastructures to ensure that people's rights are being upheld.
Yeah, I mean, similarly in New York, we're also a sanctuary city. I think we learned a lot after the Dobbs case, Roe v. Wade. And so also when I was elected in 2021, we had for the first time ever in New York City Council history, a majority women body. So before I was elected, we had 11 out of 51 members were women. And the year that I was elected, we elected 31 women out of 51.
Wow.
So we tripled our presence. Yeah, it was big. And I think with that comes, we legislate differently.
Yeah.
We create policy differently. And so what we did at that time was we made sure that we enshrined all of our protections in New York City, specifically for reproductive health care. We did it also, I led a package of bills to make sure we protected anybody seeking gender affirming care in New York City. We just passed in this last election statewide Proposal 1, which protects also all of everybody is protected, and all of those rights are codified in our state constitution. So I think what we've done in New York is just trying to secure what we already knew we had, but went the extra step. And my Black agenda for New York City that you referenced, I'm working with state colleagues to do a Black print. To make sure that we're doing everything we can to keep our people safe.
I'm gonna need a copy of that.
Yeah, you got it.
Black print.
Take that to California.
Well, this is a fight that did not just start in Mississippi this year. This has been a fight that we've been having for the past 30 years or more. And when we talk about the overturning of Roe v. Wade, that initiated in Mississippi. And so the issue that we're having before us now is where traditionally we had federal protection and federal law. Now looking at what's going on, we're not going to have those protections in Mississippi anymore. Same-sex marriage is not legal in Mississippi. It's not part of state law, but federal law is the reason that it's acknowledged. So now we're looking at what do we need to do since we possibly are losing our federal protection.
That's right.
So one thing that I've started doing is engaging with businesses in the state of Mississippi. So a few days ago, our chamber put on an event and they brought a lot of executives in from different companies about LGBTQ freedom and rights with the employers. So we're trying to get them to establish policies because we're telling them you don't have to pay attention to federal law to make policies that are inclusive of everyone. So we did that. And another thing, this takes us back to about 5-6 years ago when something happened in Mississippi that was good. We actually took our flag down, which had a Confederate emblem on it. And so when that was happening, overwhelmingly, the voters said they didn't want it. We had 2 ballot initiatives, and the voters said that they didn't want the flag to come down. So we said that would never, ever happen. But the way this happened was the NCAA said that if you leave that flag up, we are not going to bring any more championships to the state of Mississippi. And when they saw the economic impact that was going to have on the state, that flag came down.
That's right.
And so what we're doing is we have to show Mississippi how we're losing by being so restrictive. We're working now compiling a list of all corporations that have refused to come to Mississippi because of all the anti-LGBTQ legislation. And once we can show that not only to my colleagues, Well, once we can show that to the people, and we can say, look, y'all are not only hurting the LGBTQ community, you're hurting yourselves because you're hurting your economy. You're hurting where you're not going to be able to receive jobs. So we're going to show Mississippi that being as backwards as we are, we're only hurting ourselves.
Yeah, so good. So good. Let me just
Please chime in
really quickly here. You know, all of the policies that we all work on, and I'm a lobbyist, full disclosure, but all the policies that we work on, critical, important. Underneath that are the rules of the bodies in which y'all serve. And so the thing I learned from Senator Byrd, who you can imagine we agreed on very little, a thing I learned from him is that you have to know the rules of the body. How many middle children in the room? I'm a middle child, which means we know the rules, we also know how to break them. That's why we know those so well. And so part of what I think our challenge is for elected officials across the country, both LGBTQ plus and not, is that many folks don't know the rules of their body. And so we can pass really great policy and then we end up losing because we screwed up on process or didn't know it well enough, or they got us because they knew process just a little bit better. So a thing I am thinking a lot about over the next year as we continue to fight what is going to be, for some of us, the fight of our generation, is making sure that I know the rules of every single body in which I work so that we can get things done. It's a boring thing. It's an annoying thing. It's not like something that's going to get a room full of people applauding. But when we get that piece right, we can get all this stuff right too.
Yes, yes. That always gets us is not knowing the rules.
Yeah, I know the rules.
Well, I want to shift this to the panel discussion to go into really why we have this audience of people. And I'll start back with you, Courtney, because you work, yes, I said I'll start with you. Because I think we were backstage talking about the elections, and then I'll go into the elected officials. You and I both took some time to work on a specific campaign. And the one thing that I wanted to address to you as someone who sat in this role is, what is the specific messaging or language that you have seen that is more effective when communicating policies and priorities for the Black community?
So, you know, look, as we all know, the Black community is not a monolith. We often talk about us like we are, but we're not. We're very different and diverse. And we are not different than any other community, right? No one's monolith. No particular, well, there is a community that's monolith, but we won't talk about that. What I'll say is, part of what we get wrong sometimes when we are talking to voters is that we tell them it is raining and it's something else falling on their head, okay? You can't tell me that the economy is better when my protein shakes cost $23 more than they cost 2 years ago, right? You can't do that and expect me to take your policy solutions, your ideas about policy, your care for my community seriously. Now, that's not to say that the economy is not better than it was when someone told us to drink bleach. It is, right? And we're sitting in a room together. Things are better, but they're not great, right? So I think in terms of messaging, all of us have to get back to where I started this conversation. We got to start telling each other the truth.
Yes.
The truth is we have a lot of work to do. The truth is we've had Democrats in office, we've had Republicans in office, and for some communities, nothing has gotten better. We got to talk about that and figure out policy solutions that do it. But I'll tell you the thing we have to do most. We have to stand up, support, and strengthen our organizations that are doing the good work. I will tell you, I was on a campaign in another state for 6 weeks. I walked into a kid I trained. Now, I'm old, so a lot of people are kids now, right? But I walked into a kid I trained who was taking the very lessons that I taught him to support a good, solid candidate. I literally walked into 2 elected officials in the state of North Carolina that I trained who got reelected. One of which is a judge whom we need. In fact, I knocked on a door with this judge, this lesbian judge, and a young Black kid, gold teeth, stereotypically one might be very scared of this kid, started crying in her arms and thanked her for saving his life. That is the impact that the Victory Fund has. That is the impact that the Institute has. That is the impact that NBJC has. That is all of our organizations. And I know Anise stood up here and didn't ask, and this is not my job, but I'm going to do it because this is what I will tell you. When we train people to run for office, they win. When we train people to run for office, When we train them to run for office and they choose not to run, they go work on campaigns and other candidates win. How do we get to the other side of this? We get people like this elected to office.
Don't forget me.
That's how we change the game, right? And if you are not helping to stand up these organizations and also not volunteering on campaigns and also not writing checks to candidates, we're not going to get anywhere. Right. So you got to do it. I know you asked me a messaging question, but I want your money and your time.
Well, since we're telling the truth, this is my next question, and you brought it right into it, is just reflecting on your recent elections or your elections, what kind of support was most impactful to your outcome? And the second part of that, how can the people sitting in this room support more Black, same-gender loving candidates in the future? And I'll start with you, Crystal.
Sure. I mean, since we're telling the truth,
I want truth telling.
I will say, quite honestly, Black women showed up for me, and
92%.
I also relied on Black women. I went to Spelman College also, so I leaned on my Spelman sisters that were in New York to really help and support. We did phone banking, but it was phone banking with my people. That really just made a difference. When I ran, I didn't really have much support. I didn't come out of an institution, an organization. I wasn't anybody's candidate. I ran, just on my own. And there were a lot of people who didn't want to support me because, not that they didn't know who I was or that they didn't think I might win, but just the political dynamics, they were scared to take a chance on me. And, I am a non-traditional candidate. And it was literally Black women who held me down, and that's how I got through. And so, you can never underestimate the power of a Black woman.
That's right.
Most people know that, but.
And what's your
Black women to the rescue.
Yeah.
What's your specific?
What's your specific
My
ask?
specific ask, is to show up for people, show up for those of us who we know are considered non-traditional candidates, who don't have access to the same types of resources and support. And no matter who you are, right, and no matter who the candidate is, if you believe in that candidate, support them and do everything that you can to hold them down, because you might be the only person or the only group, the only cohort that they have that really shows up in a meaningful way.
Yeah, thank you.
I reflect back on my most recent election, and it was probably my most difficult election. I ended up only winning by 38 votes.
Wow.
Every vote counts. Every vote matters. So I have to say that, the voters showed up. That was one thing. People came out. But it was the toughest race. We also raised the most money that we ever had raised, and we needed to. We spent every single penny, and that's what won the day. So financial resources are really critical, particularly to Black and brown, queer, trans candidates. There are limited opportunities for Black and brown, same-gender loving, trans and gender non-conforming people to access those resources. And so it's really incumbent on rooms like this to not only open your pockets, but to convince others to support those candidates as well. Before I do wrap up, I do want to just shout out to all my trans and gender non-conforming people who are really struggling in this moment. It is deeply challenging, I think, for all Americans who are seeking equity and equality. But the trans and gender non-conforming people have been singled out loud, targeted to really eliminate our public existence. If you can't use the restroom in the
Capital you pay
Capitol.
for. The capital you pay for.
Right.
that we pay for,
Pay for.
Right.
that means that you're not welcome in society, right? That is one of the most daily functions that human beings do. And so if Sarah McBride can't go to the restroom, then she is not welcome in that body, right? So, reach out to your trans and gender nonconforming parents, family members, kids, etc. Hug them, tell them you love them, and tell them that elected officials like myself and others are out here on the front lines working to make life better for them.
Thank you. Representative Nelson.
All right. So since you said you want the truth.
Truth.
So
Not the truth, the truth.
The truth, Ruth.
and so it's not a secret that it's harder for Black candidates to raise money than other candidates.
Yeah, it is.
So we really struggle when it comes to raising money. Now, I don't want people to think that just because you get a boatload of money that you're going to win a race, because you have to put the work in as well.
Yes.
Of course.
And so early in my race, when I connected with Victory, they were paramount in helping me get across the finish line, because not only did they help me, train me on how to fundraise, but they also came and helped me set a plan up as to how to run for office. This was something that was new to me. I had no idea what I needed to do, but they were there. They held my hand all along the way. When people were saying that you can't do it, because two people I was running from was, believe it or not, one was a very popular pastor, and the second one was a local city alderman. And I'm like, Fabian, nobody knows who you are. You're never going to be able to pull this off. We ended up spending over $100,000 in a race that probably could have won for maybe $10,000.
Wow.
But we had to do the extra to get across the finish line. People say, you'll never win. You're gay. You'll never win in a state like Mississippi. Well, when the results came in, I made history because I won by 69%.
Wow.
And that was the highest margin that any non-incumbent Democrat has ever won in the state of Mississippi. So I said it to say,
Yes,
That is great.
and so we have to have money. So early funding is good for us. We have a lot of people that get in a race, they don't have any money, and then at the end they get money. Well, it's too late. I had to basically become a household name. In my district, I had to knock on every single door multiple times to let people know who I was. I had to tell my story. Like I said about telling the truth, you have to tell the truth to people. I had an issue come up. Where they're trying to take one of our stadiums in Jackson. So what happened is they put a bill out. They put one of our bond bills out, which we voted on at the end of session. It was a $500 million bond bill. Well, in that bond bill, they took it at the last minute and put in there that the state can take control of the stadium, and we all voted on the bill unanimously because we didn't know that was in there. And so I was at a meeting, one of my HOA neighborhoods, and they said, hey, can you tell us about the stadium? What happened? And I could have easily said, well, yeah, they voted to take it. I said, well, let me tell you what happened. They put it in that bill, and I, along with other colleagues, we voted for it because we didn't know that it was in there. I said, so we have to figure out a way that we're making sure that we're not letting this happen. But you have to take ownership and accountability.
That's right.
Because if I sat there and lied about it, they're going to say, oh, see, he's just like the rest of the politicians. He's going to sugarcoat it. So we have to gain that trust. And when I did that, the whole atmosphere shifted. They said, thank you, Representative Nelson. We appreciate you for telling us what really happened. Because a lot of politicians get elected, disappear. When the media calls, they don't show up. But when the media call me, my phone rings off the hook. I say, what y'all want to talk about today? Because that's what we owe to our people, the truth, no matter how pretty or how ugly it is. Because that's how you keep your people informed, and that's how you keep people engaged. That's how you change things.
That's right.
That's right.
That's right. A thing I have said a lot is, and I say this in the training every time I have the honor to train candidates for the Victory Fund Institute, is, running for office is the hardest, longest, worst job interview ever, and then you still have to do the job.
And then you got to do the job.
Right? And then you still have to do the job, which is not an easy one. But an important piece of doing the job is also building power when you're in the job. And so it's one thing to give money when someone needs to get elected and help to get them elected. You still got to give some money after they get elected.
right.
So they can build their own collective power in their community as well, and move people to build a bench, create other people to run and serve with them. One person on a council can make a difference. 5 who agree can make a huge difference,
Yeah,
right?
that's very
And so
true.
part of what we also have to do is begin to build power and create like-minded people. I am heartened by one of my good friends in the audience that I've known for 20 years. We walked the halls of Capitol Hill together as young staffers. I a little younger. And was I was mad when he moved to Minneapolis, but got very excited when he decided to run for mayor of Minneapolis, which will give someone some even more help. And so I think what we have got to do is really spend the time, Dwayne, doing the hard work of getting people elected in communities where we're winning and we have great representation already, and get more like-minded people, and also go to some of those communities where we're not winning and build that power as well.
Yes.
Sorry, I'm taking messages from the crowd. I'm just taking questions from the audience. And I will say, as a part of the Victory Fund, I also did the fellowship. You actually trained me, and I tell everyone, even though I'm the political director for Equality California, I say there is no training at all and I've gone to 20. Like the Victory Fund, to prepare you to run for office.
Yeah, no.
Can there also isn't a cuter trainer?
Listen.
I've been to many.
If anyone in here has not done the training, this is going to be the most robust, and they kept us up all night. And it's true. The reason why it is because it is, it was specific to us.
Yes.
And it was actually here. We're giving you the nuts and bolts. Now apply it. I don't want to see you till 2 a.m, because that's what campaigns are about.
Yeah.
And the second part is, I plan to run again. I hate the long interview. I love the job. But I could not have done that without Victory Fund, and I'm very proud to say that I can't do it without the MBJC and the Good Trouble Network, because I think there has to be intersectionality of the things that impact us directly, especially about when it comes to our issues. And Victory Fund does a great job of training us, but you have someone also that knows our voice and knows our lane. So I think together, I feel whole and prepared to run for this next seat that I do plan to run for. It will come.
We got you.
Because you have organizations that really are trying to do their best, but it's in this moment that everyone here that is a funder, everyone here is not running, you're a campaign staffer, or you're someone that uplifts other people into spaces. Sam, I'm looking at you. It's important that you support us now, and like Courtney said, is when we're actually doing the co-governing together, because that is how we're gonna make long-standing results and impact. So we only have, it looks like they cut into our time, y'all. So we only have about 2 minutes to go, and I just wanted to just say this, is if you could give some advice to people in this room, because they are gonna run. And we have to run harder. So when we run, it takes a lot more effort and steam. And so what is some advice that you could all give to people in the room, as people of color, as Black candidates, that will prepare them for the run? And I'll start with you, Courtney. I'm looking at you. I know, you was thinking. You was thinking.
I wanted to hear what they had to say.
Okay, then let me start with Councilmember Hudson over there. If you could start.
Oh, gosh. So many things come to mind. I mean, one, of course, is to always be your true, full, authentic self, no matter what anybody tells you. I had people when I was running who told me, well, we've never been represented by somebody who looks like you, so how do I know that you're gonna, and I was like, I've only ever been represented by people who look like you. So like, you don't even know what my leadership looks like, you know?
That's right.
So you have to always just show up as your full, true, authentic self. Don't ever take no for an answer. You'll hear no a lot, or maybe, I don't know, I'll get back to you, I'm not sure. Whether it's from somebody you're looking for an endorsement from, whether it's somebody you're asking money for, whether it's a voter, never take no for an answer. Keep going back, knocking on those doors, making those calls, asking for those dollars, whatever it is that you have to do. We do have to work harder, and that's just the reality. And so you just have to work as hard as you can and lean on your people. Lean on your family, your friends, your networks. Those are the people who know you best, who know how valuable your leadership is, and that will support you at all costs. So make sure you lean on those people and ask them what you need. You know, when we're talking about self-care,
That's right.
mental health, all of that, it's a really hard road. But if you have people that you love and trust and who love you, then no ask is too big.
Right. Ooh, that's good. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I want to take just a brief moment to publicly thank NBJC for helping me to access some mental health services. That really helped, and I think that if you are planning to run for office, it would be a good idea to engage yourself with some therapy. It is a challenging proposition to run for office. It's totally worth it, but you need some support in that. You know, I would get sort of shy about asking for money for the campaign, but then, you know, I came to this conclusion of, you know, I'm not asking for your money. I'm asking you to invest in your future.
That's right.
And so think about it like that, and it may make it a little easier for you to make those asks, because you gotta ask. You gotta ask for the
Can't
money.
get what you don't ask for.
Representative.
So if you're thinking about running for office, you need to do like Nike and just do it.
Just do it, honey.
It's never going to be the perfect time. You say, I want to wait till next time. It's never going to be the perfect time. And I'm going to tell you, there are going to be people that are going to hate you because you're black. They're going to hate you because you're white. They're going to hate you because you're gay. Some people are going to hate you because you're straight. But you're going to get a whole nother following of people that will like you for what's unique about you. Victory told me, they said, well, you know, being an LGBTQ candidate, people are going to gravitate, you know, that's going to draw people in. I said, I'm in Mississippi, that's not going to happen. But when we were out canvassing one day, my team said, Fabian, this lady wants to meet you. I said, why does she want to meet me? She heard your story and she wants to meet you. And I went over to her house and she hugged me. She said, thank you for being your genuine self. This is what we need. I have a son that's gay. I want to support you because I know that you'll be able to represent him. So don't ever think that you're not going to win because of that. Be your true self. You're going to have people that are going to love you for that. And so that's one thing that you have to maintain, being your genuine self. And I cannot stress that enough. And never is going to be the perfect time. So get out there and do what?
Just do it.
Let's do it.
You know, you've heard the same refrain from me over and over again. I want you to do all this stuff and just tell the truth. I worked for Tammy Baldwin. She tells a story much like yours. She was walking a line at a parade, and someone said, hey, you that lesbian? And she said, uh-oh. And she said, yes. And he said, yeah, that's why I'm going to vote for you. I don't agree with anything you say, but that's why I'm going to vote. Because if you don't lie to me about that, you won't lie to me about anything.
That's right.
That's it.
All right? So go forth, be honest, get your checkbooks out, write a check. I haven't written a check in a really long time. I swipe, so do that too. I don't even know if I have any checks. But also, please, 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 when given the opportunity to knock on the door for a candidate or to make phone calls for a candidate, take the opportunity to do it. It makes the difference in a campaign.
One more thing, if I can.
You can add one more thing, baby.
Want to add one more thing, Jess? You just opened my mind up with that.
I do that.
When you're running for office, there's nothing better than the human touch.
That's right.
What did it for me was knocking on doors. Now I had mailers, I had Facebook, TV ads, and all of that. But what did it for me is that people were actually able to meet me and get to know who I was. And so knock on every single door that you can. Stay in everybody's face. One woman told me, if you come back to my house again, I'm not going to vote for you. I said, well, it's too bad I'm coming back to make sure you don't forget me.
Don't forget my pie I get there. That's right.
Yeah. And I will finish as someone who has ran for office is that love list. I'm looking right at Jared about fundraising. Fundraising is always the bad F word. But as the Queen, Andrea Jenkins said, it's an investment. Once you look at it as a moment to invest in yourself, I just want you to look around the room. Everyone, just look around. Have you met someone new today? If not, you should. You should be collecting numbers and adding them to your love list. I have a love list of 157,000 contacts. I'm adding most of you to it today. But what that is to really sit down and map out how you ask people to invest in your leadership. It isn't asking them to put money in your checking account. It is asking them to invest in the message and the leader you are to get across the community so they pick you. So that's the one advice. People hate the F word, but it is the only way to pave the way for you to get your leadership and your message out to the community. And then, like the councilman said, please bring your people in to support you. I had a ton of black women. I had a ton of white women. I had a ton of Jewish, gay. I had a bunch of different types of people, but it took me a long time to establish those relationships and add them to my love list to where I raised 30,000 in like 5 hours. So I think it's important for you to remember that the F word is not bad, and it's the one advice is to start now. If you plan to run, get that spreadsheet out right now. Pull your contact list from your Yahoo, that AOL, that Gmail, the first Gmail. Pull everybody's list in there from your phone book, and start making those calls and preparing them to invest in your leadership. So I just want to thank every one of you that were on the stage today, this incredible panel. The first of its kind, with these amazing people, and thank you so much for having us. Get up here. Thank you. That was great. Oh, that was wonderful.